Hello and welcome to 365 Brothers, the podcast. I'm your host, Robin Shine, and we're excited to have restarted bringing you more videos. Remember, you can find all of our episodes, our previous 160 episodes, wherever you get your podcasts. That's on Apple, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. Please check us out. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Talking to a gentleman who has been an educator for nearly 3 decades. He's worked both in education as a teacher and also as a principal. He's worked in both urban and rural areas. He has, in fact, not only taught, but he has had his influence spread a little bit wider by being an author of books designed to increase the reading and education of young folks. And I'm just going to read you a few of them. Some of his titles are It's a Reading Thing, Help Your Child Understand, The Raisin and Milk Syndrome, Grounded in the Word, and I love this one, Reflections of a Confused Middle Class Youth. And so, as you can tell, this brother has a commitment to the empowering and upliftment of our youth, and which in turn means our entire society. And as a fellow educator, I can appreciate all of this. So I know this is going to be an excellent conversation. He received his BA in English from Emory and a master's in education from the University of Mary Washington. In addition to being an author and an educator, no surprise, he's also a speaker. And interestingly, he also has a background in television and media. He was a child actor and has appeared with such renowned individuals as Ossie Davis, Ray Charles, Pearl Bailey, Stephanie Mills, and the list goes on and on. Just a real privilege here to engage in this conversation with our guest today, Mr. Eugene Williams. Welcome, Eugene.
Thank you. That introduction was beautiful, and the privilege is all mine, Robin. So I'm just so glad that I have the opportunity to talk to you today.
Why, thank you. So before we go on to the questions, is there anything that you'd like to share with our listeners to help them get to know you better?
I have a very interesting story, I would say. Robin has talked about my former career as a child actor, but I come to the whole concept and career of education. I come to it honestly, it's in my blood. My late father, Dr. Eugene Williams Sr., was a Howard University professor, and he was at one time the dean of Sojourner Douglas College in Baltimore, Maryland. And he spent a lot of time as a principal and director of test score improvement for the DC public school system. My late mother, Helen B. Williams, was the language arts coordinator for Dade County Public Schools in Miami, Florida, for many years. And she also ran for mayor of Dade County, Miami-Dade County, in 2008 and 2012. And the beautiful story about that is, I love to big up my parents. The beautiful story about that is that she had a campaign budget of $5,000, and her incumbent opponent had a campaign budget of in excess of $1 million. And she still won 40% of the vote.
Hey, what do you attribute that to?
My mother has roots in Miami. She's real. People know her. They know her she's taught literally hundreds of kids in the Miami public school system for so many years. And she was, before she passed away, a fixture at Miami-Dade County school board meetings. So everybody knew Miss Helen. And I think that's helped her out when she was running for mayor. And it was one of the proudest moments of my life, even though she did not win. See somebody that's related to me, that have a passion and to have that type of respect from the community, the greater community, it was truly a blessing for me to see that. Yeah. So those are just some things. Before I talk too much about myself, and I'm going to shout out my dad too, one more time. If you've noticed over the past several years, you've seen Lift Every Voice and Sing, AKA the Negro National Anthem, performed before sporting events, whether it be the NBA or the NFL. The person you have to blame for that or to congratulate for that is my father, the late Dr. Eugene Williams Sr. He started that movement in 2017 when he was able to encourage the Washington Wizards, that's his favorite team, his hometown team, to do that for Black History Month. And it went over so well, he was able to use that incident to then call the Golden State Warriors, the Boston Celtics, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. They started doing it. And over the years, it just evolved and grew. And eventually the NFL took it over. And so now even in some NASCAR races, you hear it, done before the national anthem. I'm very proud of that. I tell everybody that all the time. If whether you're happy about it or not happy about it, if you hear Lift Your Voice and Sing before a sporting event, you can thank my late father, Dr. Eugene Williams Sr. If you don't believe me, Google him. Eugene Williams Sr., Lift Up Your Voice and Sing. All the articles are out there.
Let me tell you something. I love the variety of guests we get. That is amazing. That is really fantastic. We talk about influencers today, right? And it's become almost synonymous with hawking something. And your parents are the quintessential influencers. And clearly have passed it on to you.
I do what I can. It's hard to follow in the footsteps of giants like mom and dad, but I do what I can.
Let's start off with, what are your favorite words? Quote, phrase, book?
I think my favorite quote comes from the abolitionist Frederick Douglass. And he said, "It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men."
I love that quote.
I think that's an important quote because, especially as an educator, as the son of educators, we find so often that a lot of the mistakes we see our young people making, it's not because they're bad people. It's not because they don't value the leadership and the wisdom that we have to provide for them. It's because a lot of times no one has taken the time to take them under their wing and tell them, these are the things you need to do to be a productive and successful person. And the people that do take them under their wing sometimes are people that you wouldn't want to be role models for. So we find that when that happens, they might end up behaving in ways that we don't like. But work with children early on, train them up early on, and 9 times out of 10, you will invariably see the goodness and the honesty and the work ethic. It will manifest itself, but you have to get them early. The difference between right and wrong, how to represent yourself and the family, especially with American children, especially young men. You have to be twice as good, twice as talented as some of your more mediocre counterparts in order to get half of what they're able to get. So, favorite quote, that's why.
Yeah, I love that quote. I actually had a compilation book out, 99 Inspiring Quotes by famous African Americans. And that is definitely in there. Love it so much. We've been all about significant people. So, what is a significant person or a moment or event that either changed the trajectory of your life or it had a significant impact on your life?
The event that had the most significant impact on my life was the birth of my daughter. When you are a young married man and you have your first child, in this case, my first and only child, automatically, as soon as you hold that baby in your arms, you begin to realize life has changed for you and everyone around you. And if you want to have any chance at all of raising a successful and productive human being, a lot of the foolishness and silliness that you engaged in before you have this child, you got to cut it off, nip it in the bud. And when I think of all the things that grew me up the fastest, that made me mature the most, even though I had my first child when I was in my late 20s, but I was still doing young man things.
Okay, come on, give us one. What's something you gave up?
The same things that all young men are doing now, partying and having a good time. And of course, this was before I got married to my wife, but before I met her, I was the average, typical, everyday American.
We would have saw you at the club.
You might have seen me at the club. I might have been sitting at the bar a little bit, sipping on something. You don't know. It depends on what day it was, how it felt, what was going on in my life. The moment I had my daughter was a important moment in my development as a man. And another set of moments. The moment I had my daughter and the moments that my parents passed away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember which writer it was, but somebody out there has a quote saying, "You don't truly grow up until your parents are gone."
I've heard that.
At that point, the resources that you've been leaning on for your entire life, they are gone, never to return again. So you spend a lot of time trying to remember, what is it that dad said to do in this situation? What is it that mom used to always tell me? Because it's crazy. The situations that they talk about to you when you're coming up and they say to you, you better listen to me, Junior, because this is going to happen to you someday. And you say, oh, mom and dad, old dinosaurs, they don't know what they're talking about.
Mm.
And then when that situation or situations come up, you say, wow, they were way more wise than I ever gave them for. And for any children that are listening out there, everybody will come to that moment in their life, trust me. Even those of us have parents we didn't get along with. We'll see some things in our life and realize, oh, I didn't get along with mom and dad, but that one issue they were right about. It comes in one form or another to everybody.
Yeah.
So those are the moments, my daughter being born, my parents passing away. The person that I think changed my life, I don't know if he changed my life, but he was a big influence on me, was my 11th grade AP English teacher, Mr. Daniel Leslie Bowden. Now, first of all, I spent a lot of my time in public education, but I went to private schools coming up.
Mm-hmm.
From grades 2 through 7, I attended the McDonough School in Baltimore. And from grades 8 through 12, I attended Ransom Everglades School in Coconut Grove, Florida, right outside of Miami. I'm an author, and I've always been relatively talented as a writer. A lot of that comes from my mother, who was an English teacher for many years, and she's the one that taught me how to write. So by the time I got to school, I already knew how to put together essays and ideas and things of that nature. But
I can imagine.
it wasn't until I got to Dan Leslie Bowden's class that I realized I was a pretty decent writer, because somebody other than my mother was singing my praises about my writing. And he was an elderly Southern gentleman, white. And he was one of those people that was a teacher that if you're lucky, you have one time in your life, somebody who's your biggest fan. If you wrote something and he loved it, he would tell all his fellow faculty members, the entire school. Now, if you wrote something that was crap, he'd pull you aside and say, you're better than this. What are we doing right now? This is not how we operate, Mr. Williams. What's going on? And also, when I was in school, I was involved in the fine arts. I was a singer. I was involved in musical theater. And he was my biggest fan with regards to that, too. His nickname for me was the Dazzler. So I hear him now. Oh, here comes Mr. Williams, the Dazzler. I think about him and the encouragement that he gave me in a time where it was difficult at times, being one of maybe 5 or 6 Black students in a very exclusive private school who was constantly trying to academically prove their worth. And I was able to do that because of the training I received at home from my parents, of course, but I had a lot of support from my teachers there, and my biggest supporter was Mr. Bowden. God rest his.
Yeah, there's so many people like that. For me, there was Dr. Benny Reams. I've probably mentioned her once or twice in the course of my many episodes, but she wasn't my teacher. She was an administrator, and I was doing some shenanigans. She called me in her office, called me out, and asked me what I was thinking, because that wasn't even my thing. Who was I trying to impress and why, like that? And I'm so grateful for literally that one conversation, but she was just amazing throughout. So when I hear stories like that, it always makes me smile. And listeners, I encourage you to take a moment and reflect on, if you're fortunate to have a teacher who really stood out for you, just send them a little love through the ethers.
Yes.
Anyway, not that we are biased as educators.
No, not at all.
Excluding your parents or guardians, Eugene, who is the first person to earn your respect?
That's that's a wild question. And I'm going to go around the bend with this question and just follow me on this one, okay? That's an odd question for somebody of my generation.
Okay.
And here's why. Out of my upbringing. There wasn't a choice of what adults you would respect in my house when you came up. If they were an adult, they were respected. They didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to earn it. That person was an adult. And Eugene Sr. and Helen both. When adults are having a conversation, you wait until there's a lull in the conversation. And then you say, excuse me, mother, father, auntie, uncle, grandma, grandpa, may I? When you saw somebody who was an elderly person, you spoke.
Yeah.
You didn't just walk past people, you spoke. That was a cardinal sin in my house And even after my parents got divorced, when I was living with dad, when I was living with mom, whoever one I was living with, if they were out amongst their friends, right amongst the community, and people said hello and you didn't speak first or speak back when spoken to, there was a problem. So that's why I say, with regards to my upbringing, respect was key for everybody, for me. That's how I was raised. Everybody deserves respect until they give you a reason not to respect them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm of the similar generation, and that was a given. You spoke to them, they were who they were. And then there were still some that stood out as making an impression on you in a way that you went, wow, wow.
Okay. Okay. So in terms of impressions, then that would be, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this because of what has happened to him of recent years.
I already know who you're gonna say. And I'm gonna tell the audience right now, I saw the list of people you worked with, and you might have noticed there's one name I didn't say.
There's
Go
one
for it.
name we didn't say, and that name would be that person that first impressed me
Yeah, no, go for it.
would have been Dr. William H. Cosby Jr. Now, we can talk about the negative aspects of what he was involved in. That's a whole nother discussion. But what I've learned as a 54-year-old man, people go through changes, people go through stages in life. No one is perfect. But in terms of that time, in those days, when we talk about a person who had an influence on African American culture, we're talking about, regardless of what negative things he did, and we know that they were some terrible things he was alleged to have done, and I totally understand that, and I don't condone those actions. But when we're talking about 1975 and African American culture, late 60s, early 70s, first Black star of a national television show, I Spy, that was big. The person who was the originator who brought us Jell-O pudding, brought it to the American attention. Fat Albert, the specials he used to do on African culture and the specials he used to do on educating Black boys. I would ask anyone to go to YouTube and go down one of the Bill Cosby rabbit holes with regards to education and Black boys. And you might not realize until then just how important he was to the culture at that time when I was coming up as a very young child. And then to go a few years later on, when we think of the Cosby Show, when we think of a different world and the influence that his writing and his ideas had on an entire, not just Black culture, but an entire society. Remember, this was a guy who was known in America shortly after the Reagan years as being America's dad. A Black man, America's dad, at that time of American history, that was huge. And then a man who had the foresight to create a show that would feature historically Black colleges and universities, and then influenced literally thousands of kids from rural areas, urban areas, suburban areas, to go to the Howards, to go to the Fisks, to go to the Morehouses, to go to the Clark Atlanta University Centers, to go to all of those places. Now, we can have that debate about what happened to him later on in life and maybe what he was doing in those down moments when we didn't see the great things that he was doing. Yes, I understand that. But I also know enough about human nature, enough about people to know that people are more than their worst day. Everybody is more than their worst action. And what I will say is, as a Christian person, I'm so glad that God has more patience and understanding for us than we do for each other. So glad about
I
that.
will say this. So
Not saying, not defending, just saying.
yeah. So let me just say, so when those revelations came out, I shared with my personal community having experienced acquaintance rape. And so when you say that, I just want you to know my mind is going back and forth. And it is a complicated
Sure.
situation because you're right. I feel fairly certain that I've not done anything at that level. But I also know that I haven't lived a perfect life,
Okay.
right? And none of us have.
None
And
of us
then
have.
the other thing I go to is that those actions for which he was convicted were 100% horrendous, period. End
Yes.
stop, full stop.
Sure.
But I appreciate the context of it because we talk about our founding fathers. And even as African Americans, we know that they were slave owners. There are people who've invented things that we still respect their inventions. We honor their contributions, and we know that they might have beat to near death human beings.
Yes.
We know that there are people whom we respect who have sent bombs
Yes.
to kill hundreds of thousands,
Yes.
and we praise them despite the fact that they've got that blood on their hand.
How
And
about that?
so
That's crazy.
I,
But we
I'm
do.
not
Well, we do it.
right. And I shared that part about my own personal experiences just to say, in no way am I condoning, but I also do want to give space to the recognition of what he contributed and where I come from. And that is, I can't deny that I looked forward to the Cosby Show. Like
Yes.
that family, and when you add the impact that he had in terms of reminding people of historic Black colleges, like
Yes.
that is significant. And I, like I said, when I could tell where you were going to go and who you were going to say, like I wasn't going to put his name in my show. But since you did, I just want to I want to make sure that I would love it if listeners could come down on whatever side you want to come down on. But I think if we're going to judge, and I'm going to say one more thing that nobody asked me to say.
Okay.
I have a family member who is anti LGBTQ and will go from a Christian place about their sins.
Sure.
And my thing is, I thought a sinner was a sinner, and I don't see you judging the fornicators the same way.
No. We very conveniently judge folks. And once again, see, here's where I worry, but I don't worry.
Hmm.
I worry that in us having this conversation right now, somebody's going to take away from this conversation. Oh my God, Eugene Williams is in favor of Bill Cosby, and that's not what this is about.
No,
But I'm also of the age, as I approach my 6th decade on this earth, I begin to care less and less about what people think I'm saying when I know what I mean.
yeah,
So it's in terms of the question that you asked me, as a 5-year-old sitting next to Bill Cosby on a set of steps with 5 other children, eating Jello pudding and doing a commercial, and in terms of what he meant to the culture and what he meant to me personally at that time in my life. And then as I moved to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 12, into the teens and seeing what he was doing in terms of enhancing Black culture and changing the way a lot of white folks look at us, appalled by what he's been accused of. But I also know that there were a lot of people who were motivated and who benefited and who were inspired by the earlier parts of his life.
understood, understood.
And I happen to be one of them. So it is what it is.
Yeah, you know what? And I want to say that originally when I created this podcast, I had the intention of I want to talk to people that I might even disagree with, which I've got some common ground with you there. But it has turned out the people who are more likely to say, yes, there is a similar, you know what I mean,
Sure.
view and all of that.
Sure.
But anyway, I welcome it. I hope I have more people say things that challenge me to go, okay, hold on, let me think about this. Okay, okay. Anyway, so what insights from your career or formal training can you share with our listeners to help them get more out of life?
I don't think it's so much from formal training. I think it's much more from living.
Okay.
I remember a colleague I had when I was first teaching at Crossland High School in Prince George's County, Maryland. And her favorite saying was, don't sweat the small stuff. And most of it is indeed small stuff. I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in titles and achievements and the bag that we don't take time to thank God or whoever you pray to for the blessings every day. And I say this all the time. My students used to get mad at me when I would say this. Everybody that's watching this woke up this morning. Some people didn't get a chance to do that. Let's be grateful. If you're watching it on a computer, that means at some point in your life, you were blessed with the wherewithal and the access and the money to purchase said computer to watch this fantastic program. That's a blessing. Don't pull that. Don't discount that. If you brushed your teeth this morning, got up on your own, dressed yourself, fed yourself, there's a whole lot of people out here that would love to be able to do those things. But for some folks, that's not the case. Be grateful. And I find that if you approach life with an attitude of gratitude, a lot of stuff that causes chips to fall on shoulders, you don't have time for it.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite things also was I was mad because I had no shoes. So I met a man who had no feet. And I know it sounds simple, and I'm not even sure to answer your question, but it's the way I wanted to answer it. I think that sometimes we don't just sit down and take stock of the everyday things that make us who we are, that make us smile, that make us laugh, and just be thankful for them. Because some people have no joy in their lives whatsoever. When I was a principal, I had a saying at the end of every set of morning announcements. And I stole the saying from the great comedian George Wallace. The saying was, Mr. Williams loves you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And people would say to me, Mr. Williams, that's corny. Why do you say that? I said, because there are some people, there are some kids especially, who go through an entire day, may go through an entire week, and never hear the words, I love you, coming out of the mouths of the people that live with them or that they need to hear it from. So they can say at least at one point to one day, every day, there was a person who told me, whether he told me in person or told me on the loudspeaker, that he loved me for however long or short that was. And the crazy thing about it was, as much as the kids hated it and said it was corny, when I did do it, hey, Mr. Williams, because you left us today. What's wrong with you, man? Why are you tripping? You didn't say you left us today? So, oh, my bad, kids. Should have said it. I guess I was feeling some kind of way today. I'll make sure I put in the announcements tomorrow. So that's, for me, what it's all about. Just, you're blessed with this life. What you do with it is totally up to you. Do right by people as best you can and show respect at all times. And 9 times out of 10, it will come back to you. And for people who are mad at you for no reason or mistreat you for no reason, don't take it personally. It's probably just something about your spirit that irritates their demons. That's probably all it is.
Oh, I love that. Something about your spirit that irritates their demons. Oh, I know some. And basically what I hear that you're sharing from your life experience, from your lived life, is it's gratitude, but it's also, you get one. This is it. And I was just journaling.
There is no other. That's it.
It's this soul in this flesh bag, this version right here it is born and then it's gone. And whatever's going to get done, it's going to get done. And as you mentioned, coming up upon your 6th decade, same here.
I still got about 5 years to go, but it's coming.
Yeah, mine's closer. And I'm not one of these women where I don't want you to know money. I don't care. But
It's a privilege to get older. I never understood these folks.
isn't it?
I'm glad to have gotten here because some people didn't make it with me.
Someone told me, it's a phrase people have heard before, but that it struck me the first time I heard it at an age that I was listening. And they said, the thing about aging is you cannot like it, but the alternative, you're not aging. You're not here. I think gray hairs are awesome.
I think no hair is awesome. I think, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. In fact, under here is no hair, and I'm all good with that because, again,
That'll work.
the alternative, right? So, apart from the Obama presidency, which pivotal historical event has left the most profound impact on you, and how has it shaped your perspective?
That's easy. My father and I, my late father and I, had the opportunity to attend the Million Man March together. And on that day, when I saw those legions of African American males from all walks of life, you saw doctors, lawyers, janitors, construction workers. You saw folks from the fraternities and sororities. You saw folks from the Elks Club. You saw folks from the all different groups and organizations together as men and celebrating one another and really being forced to think about our role in society and what we can do individually and collectively to turn our fortunes around as a race of people. That was big for me. That was big for me. And sometimes people get caught up in who was in charge of it and what people have said. Listen,
Mhm.
there are things that the Honorable Minister have said that I do not agree with. And then there are some things that I very much do agree with in terms of what African American males need to do in terms of taking responsibility for themselves, their families, their place in society, and their desire to build young men and young women to carry on a legacy of excellence. I'm all for that. And there are a whole bunch of people that I find when I'm going through the internet and hearing the news that I have different opinions from. But even those people who I differ with the most, occasionally they'll say something and I'll say, daggone, even the broken clock is right twice a day.
Hey.
Candace Owens, she's out there. But every now and again, she
Mhm.
might say something. You say, I don't like that, but let me process it before I just totally poo-poo the idea. Could be Charleston White, that could be Minister Farrakhan, that could be Charlemagne the God, that could be a number of people. But my philosophy in life is to take what I can agree with and what's positive and find common ground with that. And the rest of it, we don't have to be buddies or pals. But if you say something that makes sense to me and it's positive, and when it helps more people than it hurts, we have common ground.
Yeah. I remember there's this quote that I find very applicable in education in some situations. And the phrase within the quote is the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Woo! Wow.
And I love that quote. I love
Wow.
that quote so much.
Wow.
And yeah,
Cause it's,
and
cause
so
it's real. Cause
it's
it's
real,
real.
right? And I looked it up and it was like, oh, George Bush said that. I wasn't a huge fan, but that quote is awesome.
Listen,
I'm not
hey,
really for him.
you know,
It was it, but he gets the attribution. I love that quote. And
and you're
I
right. I think it
think
was
that,
somebody else, but he did use it. But my
yeah.
thing is, we gotta stop getting in our feelings as Black folks, man, about stuff that we hear from people because sometimes we spend so much time with the emotion of it that the logic of it and the realness of it and the application of it escapes us, and that's to our detriment.
Mhm.
That's to our detriment, and that's not just Black people. That's all people.
No, it's all people.
I could say the same thing to folks who support some current beliefs
Mhm.
and haven't realized yet the person they're supporting is not thinking or quit about them as only
Mhm.
for himself. But that's a
Mhm.
whole other discussion for another show.
Yes.
We just gotta really just get out of our emotions and listen to what's being said and try to figure out, okay, so what I didn't like what this person believes in. I don't like the flag he flies. I don't like his friends or his associates. But he said this one thing that's universal.
Mhm.
He said this one thing that we can all key into. Let's delve more into that. Because that person already knows I'm not feeling him on this other stuff. Delve into that small number of things that can unify so that we can both mutually benefit from. I'll put it
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And for me, what comes to mind metaphorically is you can have a book that's just a book. You read it cover to cover in, but within that, there were maybe a
Gems,
400 pages, but two quotes
some
that
gems,
with you for the rest of your life. And
gems.
I hear that and getting back to your answer, the Million Man March, definitely that's been mentioned. And every time a brother mentions something, I still get something new from it because when you mention the Million Man March, and I think again, each person share something a little different. And it was the way you described the varying backgrounds of everyone there so
Yeah.
vividly
Yeah.
that I actually, and I'm pumping the movie. I don't get nothing for saying it, but Origin, Ava DuVernay's, which is a look at the caste system. It just got in me and it stayed. But what I take away having seen that movie, and I hear you today, I think, wow, the magnificence and the brilliance of all these Black men together, it's like stepping outside of the caste system. It's like you can go to a meeting of your fraternity brothers, you can go to your mega church and know that Black men are doing it, but it can feel like we're doing it right here and they're doing it right there. And
Yeah.
so I can only imagine that experience of being in a river, like a
Yes.
Mississippi-sized river.
Yes.
Of
Yes.
you know what I mean? Of and
Yes.
how affirming that would be.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
and
And
yeah.
it was a once in a lifetime experience.
Mhm.
I hope I experience something like that again. Don't know if I will in my lifetime. But like you said, just first of all, I think people have to realize that in terms of African Americans, there are some basic issues that we all deal with, but outside of those maybe 10 or 11 basic issues that we all have to deal with, unfortunately, we're not a monolith. We're very different people. We have that unique quality of not being a monolith, yet we all have the same problems.
Mhm.
If that makes sense. We're
Absolutely.
we are a very group of people, but we all have the same set of particular problems, and we all need to engage in this one particular set of skills to defeat those problems.
Look, if Colin Powell rented a car, was in some sweats, and went into Starbucks, he's gonna get similar treatment unless he's recognized
Right.
as any other brother in that particular Starbucks would get, period.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
What is a moment or an event that highlights or in some way signifies your experience as a Black man in the United States? Not that we haven't been touching on that throughout, but if there's something in particular.
Okay. Okay. Wow. So there was the Million Man March, of course, but recently the situation down, I believe it was in Alabama, with the riverboat.
Oh, yes. And for those who don't know, that was a fight that broke out. But the starting point, I'm going to let you tell it. Go.
Well,
Because
from
I can start.
what I remember, there was a situation where there were some white boaters, and this bigger boat was trying to park or dock or what have you, and it was that bigger boat's established docking spot,
Correct. It was
and
going where it was supposed to go.
there was a African American. I'm not sure if he was the captain, what have you, but he was a major crew member who was trying to tell the white boaters, hey, folks, could you please move? We're trying to put our boat here, what have you. They didn't react to it very well, from what I understand, and then physically threatened or approached the Black employee of the ship, at which time he threw his hat up in the air to provide some sort of signal that he needed help. And he was outnumbered, I think it was like 7-1.
Mhm.
And at that point, all of the African Americans on and off the ship that were within that small radius of an area came together and let the disrespectful white boaters know that this behavior was not going to fly on this day. That's the best I'll be able to put it. And you had people swimming to his rescue. You had people running to his rescue. You had folks, men and women, who had decided that we as African Americans are not going to allow this African American to be so blatantly disrespected while he was simply doing his job.
Right.
And so from that, I took, when a group of people who've been historically, I don't want to use the word oppressed, but historically looked down upon for whatever reason, or mistreated, or treated as second class citizens at various points in American history, when a group of people get sick and tired of being sick and tired of that treatment, they can react in some very surprising ways. And some people had a problem with how they reacted, I would say to those people, those who had a problem with it have never had to deal with those situations and the micro and macro aggressions that a lot of Black people face on a daily basis. And I don't like violence. I really don't. I don't condone it, but I understand why it happened. And I'm not going to lie to you. I was pleasantly surprised by the unity that was shown in that particular incident because all too often we are the one ethnic group that has a problem unifying around common causes. It would, in my experience, that's what has happened. So that moment was big for me in a variety of ways.
Yeah. And my guess is that many of the listeners for 365 Brothers are familiar with that. But if you are not, it's a quick, easy YouTube search to check out. And I got to tell you, I probably watched that video 10 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
first, I just, it was almost disbelief. Like they about to mess with this man for doing his job. For real.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can get off your boat and come follow him when he's walking away.
Right.
Okay. And he was like, this can't be helped. He was walking away. Maybe he's going to call the police. I don't know what he's going to do, but he was walking away. And it was like, no, we're going to attack you because you've insulted us.
Right.
And I think that's what.
And maybe not because you've even insulted us, maybe because you had the temerity to call us out on what we were doing that was incorrect. How
And
dare you?
when I said insulted, that was in air quotes, insulted. Didn't make that. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, you're trying to tell us you're going to come over here and tell us. And I think what united, and again, I don't know because I wasn't there. I only saw it on video, but if you were there, I would imagine, and you're watching this, and that the communication is, nigga, don't speak to us.
Hey.
That this grown, respectable gentleman has no right to talk to us is really what the communication was.
Hey.
And that was, oh, wait a second. And I will say this as we move on. I can still see the face of that young brother who jumped off the ship he was on, the one that was trying to
Wham, truly action.
swam in the water to get his brothers back.
Yes.
I can see his face and hair today.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, answers are fire.
That was an important moment in recent history for me to see that. That just did my heart good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for those who can't understand why it did my heart good, I can't explain it to you. You have to be an African American male in America of a certain age who has seen this country go through so many changes and has seen this country take 5 steps forward and 10 steps back over and over again on things that should be simple, on basic human dignity issues that shouldn't be even a challenge, that shouldn't be even a struggle. And so when you see that, and you see a group of people who have been mistreated and disrespected in a variety of ways over the course of many decades, over the course of the entirety of the history of this country, and people who look like them saying, we're sick and tired of being disrespected. Not today. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe over at your house. Maybe when you're on the side of town that you guys control. But today, we can't have it. We just can't have it. And we're going to have to let you know that we can't have it. And
yeah, you're not on your ranch.
Yeah, you're not at home. You're not at home. You're in the street, and we can't have it.
Not at home. You're not at home. If you could spend 8 hours with an African American male from any time, who would it be and what would you do?
I had a couple of them, more than a couple.
All right, give us your top 2.
Top 2. I can't go a little further than 2. I can't go 3 or 4.
Oh, no, not 4. Come on now. Come on.
No, because listen, hey, one for 8 hours, I'll have a person. It won't take me 8 hours to get to know that person. I can pick their brains in 2 or 3.
Okay.
But you won't give me 8 hours. That's a ton of time.
Okay.
And after a while, they might get tired of me after hour and a half.
So I've asked this question in the past, and I had put it at 5 hours because I figured I was enough time to get in, be interested, and get out. And then I decided to change it to 8 in case somebody wanted to do something. I don't know. Go boating. I don't know.
I would want to spend a little time with and there's some pat answers, of course, Dr. King, and talk to him about, hey, doc, how did your opinions change over time? Because if I remember correctly, early on, you were talking about integration and equal rights. And then later on, you saw how things were really moving in the government, and you started talking about labor and finances and how that was more than just a Black issue. That was a class issue. And of course, it was, maybe would argue, it was the class issue that got Dr. King killed, not the Black issue.
Speak on it.
And then I want to ask him about, when you said the quote, I fear that we might be integrating into a burning house. Talk to me about that. What was going on in your mind when you said that? And who specifically were you talking about? What leaders were you talking about? What policies were you talking about? I want to know. So yes, Dr. King will be one, absolutely, no doubt.
Okay, love your question. Anyway, go on.
Next, of course, Malcolm X. Okay, Mr. X, let me ask you, how did it feel when a person that you had given all of your trust and respect to, and you honored him as if he was an actual father, when you found out he was a human being and not a demigod, when you found the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was just a human being with human frailties and makes mistakes like everybody else, how'd you grapple with that? How did you move through that? How'd you navigate that? And then when you then go to the Middle East and find out that Islam was a religion that knew no color, how do you juxtapose that with what you're learning as a member of the Nation of Islam? Because we all know that not all Muslims are African American. We know that.
Yeah, we know that.
We know there are brown Muslims, there are white Muslims, there are Muslims all over the world. So then how do you reconcile what was learned and what was taught by the NOI with what you learned later on as just a Muslim of the world, if that's the term I can use?
Yeah.
So that would be that question. Then I would want to talk to, no, that's too easy. That's too easy. I want to talk to him.
Come on, now I gotta know. Now I gotta know.
No, I want to talk to Barack Obama. I would.
Okay.
I would. Now that you're out of office, can you tell me specifically the types and the levels of disrespect that you had to face on a daily? Like, what were some of those egregious things that were ever said to your face?
Liar. Sorry.
That's please. That's nothing. That's just the rantings of some.
That was show. Yeah.
That was the rantings of some frustrated people who knew they were wrong anyway. But
yeah,
in negotiations, in meetings, in cabinet discussions, on the campaign trail, because we all heard the stories about how President Clinton said there was a time when a guy like him would be getting my coffee. What type of disrespect? We know what type of disrespect, blatant disrespect you face from your opposing party. But talk about some of the foolishness that you had to deal with within your party that you were leading. And then finally, I have the final two. I have two more, but I just want to talk to you.
I'm gonna let you look.
Let me have it.
Go ahead.
Michael Eric Dyson and Cornell West. Both of them are scholars. I think Michael Eric Dyson spent some time teaching at Georgetown. Cornell West spent some time teaching in the Ivy League. You see them oftentimes on MSNBC talking about racial issues. Cornell is the older gentleman, skinny, has the big wild afro.
Yes.
And the scarf around his neck. Michael Eric Dyson is the one whose vocabulary is like the walking Webster's dictionary. I just like to hear them talk. So I would ask them anything just to hear them talk, because their rap is so strong.
I hear you on that.
Not just one. Those are the five men I like to spend a day with, talk to, have dinner with, have a couple of drinks with, eat steak, whatever.
You're making me want to switch up my question, because now I'm like, make this a dinner party.
Hey, why not? Don't get me started, because if it's a dinner party,
we filled the seats, okay? We filled the seats. Ain't nobody else.
But I got some ladies I want to talk to too.
I know. Trust, man. People are asking me, you gonna do a 365 sisters? I'm gonna do what I'm doing right now. We'll see where else to go. But I I gotta say, I'm glad I let you get all 5 in because those that you named, all of a sudden, I'm sitting here. I hope heaven is real. I want to be there. I want to see all of them sitting there. I'm gonna host a dinner party. Okay, you understand?
Come on, what? Because but let me wrap up this question with one last point.
Okay,
Okay, so I would spend the day with and maybe have dinner and a meal with those guys. But after it's
okay.
over, I want to have my cake and coffee with James Baldwin.
Listeners, you see how he slipped down 6? Watch this one.
That's how we end the night, with cake and coffee. Let James Baldwin hold court and just let us
Look,
know what's really going on in the world.
look. That sounds like a lot of fun. That whole evening sounds like a lot of fun. And I'm really going to be rethinking if I want to switch up my question to a group thing because, woo, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate that because I love my imagination. I can play there all day. And I really love that you just set a scene or created this opportunity for me to see. 'Cause I feel like I live in a world of scarcity because I'm only gonna let you have one. You like,
Yeah, let me have one. Can't have one.
and I'm like,
Can't have
yeah,
one.
mm-hmm.
That's too
Okay.
important a question to give me one. That's too important a question.
Hey, okay. Look, on this one, try to have one answer.
Okay, all right. I'll do better next time.
If the United States was a woman with whom you could speak, he took off his glasses, listeners. He took off his glasses.
Come on,
Rubbed the
man. And this is a woman. What? Okay, go ahead.
United States was a woman with whom you could speak, whether she's a mother, lover, stranger, neighbor, friend, what you call it. What would you say to her?
Let me think on this one.
Mhm.
Hold on. Hey, America. Let me talk to you for a minute. Come over here for a second, sweetheart. I need to run something by you. I know you're going to be mad at me when I tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this out of love. And no one else is going to tell you this. You ain't as cute as you think you are. You're wonderful. You're intelligent. You're fantastic. You did a lot of great things, but there's some things about you need to work on. And if you're honest with yourself, what's the truth? Okay. And you can put on all the makeup you want, all the eyeliner, all the hair extensions, all the lip gloss, whatever you want. But some of us out here, we can't afford to see you for anybody else than what we know you are. Other folks can have luxury of living with the fantasy, and God bless them. But history has told us that when we allow ourselves to be disarmed by your apparent beauty, that we get kicked in the teeth in the long run. We love you. We must love you because despite the way you treat us, we continue to defend you. We continue to try to make you better. We continue to try to build with you. We continue to try to grow with you, negotiate with you. You'll find throughout history, there's no group of people in this country, maybe some group of people that are as patriotic, but there's a group of people that are more patriotic than Black people. When you continually defend and fight for and die for and beg and plead and ask and struggle with a woman who has told you time and time again, listen, I'll let you hang around. None, you are permanently in the friend zone. You ain't never, we're
Oh,
never gonna be like that. Okay? When you know that, then we have to operate in a different way. So yes, if America was a woman, that's probably the type of conversation I would have with her, because that's the type of conversation America needs. Every time we as Black people have had that conversation with America, we have helped to make America better, helped to make America more inclusive. And a lot of times it was Black folks who led that inclusivity. So if you are a feminist, good for you. Thank a Black person. If you are part of the LGBT community, God bless you and love you. But thank Black folks, because we were fighting for the things, the basic rights that you were fighting for long before it was cool to do it. It was us who opened that door first. And when we opened that door, all of the other mistreated, misunderstood folks of America were able to come in behind us through that door and enjoy the rights that we so viciously fought for, tenaciously fought for. So that's just my opinion on it. Some people may disagree. It is what it is.
Yeah. You said permanently in the friend zone. It just painted such a
Because listen, we understand now it's probably very little chance that we'll ever be the boyfriend. We'll be the next door neighbor. We'll be the friend zone person. We'll be the guy that delivers the groceries. We'll be the person you work with. And hey, Leroy, how's it going? But
we're not even going to keep to the house when they're on vacation.
they might let us even house sit.
Yeah.
When they're out of town. When she said, when they're out of town, she said, let me get my neighbor over here to house sit real quick. He's trustworthy.
Uh-huh.
He'll take care of me better than I will take care of myself. History has shown that too.
But upon returning, see ya.
But I'm back now. You can get at.
I'll call you.
I'll holler at you when I need you. When I need you, I'll holler at you. Always good to see you. But you can roll out now, sir.
Anyway, thank you. Can anyone question that you belonged on television in any and every role that you've had? And I have to say, on behalf of all the students you've taught and the students that you were an administrator over, thank you for being that kind of love and that kind of commitment.
But listen, first of all, somebody had to do it. Teaching was not what I originally set out to do. I stumbled upon teaching. It was something I happened to be good at. And I said, oh, okay.
Really?
And I can affect these kids' lives. And I can show African-American kids there's a blueprint for some level of success. And I can show my white students that what you've been forced to see on television, we're so much more than just that or those stereotypes. The beautiful thing about it is I was at a wedding a couple of months ago, and one of my former students invited me to his wedding. And he was also a former player because I was also a football coach in high school for several years.
Okay.
And to have him call me to be part of it, Mr. Williams, I know you're busy, but if you would just come to the wedding, I would love it. And all the groomsmen remember you and they want to see you. And so he had white groomsmen, black groomsmen. It was a wide variety of young men. And to have white kids, men now, white men, grown men, black grown men, who I coached on the football field, who I taught English to, who I taught African-American studies to, and to say, hey, coach, it's good to see you, man. What you been doing with yourself? How's life been treating you? Sometimes when we're talking to our kids or when we're talking to our wives, we remember some craziness that you said to us, and we say it to them, and we start laughing, and they can't believe that we know somebody that talks the way that you do and has the job that you had. And I said to them, thank you. It was a blessing. We're only here for a very short time. If we can affect somebody's life in a positive way, you might as well do it. What else do you have to do?
Got it. And truth. So based on your particular expertise and your perspective, what's something that excites you about the future of this country?
What excites me is a group of young people now that's coming up. They're now getting to be adults. It excites me and frustrates me at the same time because as an old head, I'm used to doing things a certain way. But I also realize the flaws of some of the things that we've done over the years. And just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean it was the right thing to do. But I'm still trapped by the fact that I am an old head. So that's how I was trained to do things, and I do them that way. When I see young people, especially this young group of workers now coming out, young group of teachers now coming out, telling people, listen, we know what you did in the past, but we're not going to sacrifice our mental well-being for a job. We're not going to allow you to mistreat us just because you think or you know we need money. We're going to demand that you treat us with a basic level of respect and human decency, regardless of your title, regardless of your race, regardless of your orientation. There's just certain things that the folks before us let slide and tolerate. We ain't doing it. Now, as an old head, that does give me pause because I'd say, I'm torn. Like, some of y'all are really just, it borders on disrespect, or are y'all serious about this? Because if y'all gonna take this attitude, where's America headed in terms of growth and prosperity? But by the same token, I have to appreciate the bravery. I have to appreciate the guts. I have to appreciate the whole idea of they are mentally at 24, 34, and 44, where people should be at 64, 74, 84. When you get older, certain things like, I don't care anymore. I'm going to say what I want to say. I want to do it. That's failure. That's that older mentality. Now, this younger group has already got that, has got the 64-year-old attitude and the 74-year-old attitude at the 24 and 34-year-old age group. So that's just, it's going to be interesting to see. So that kind of excites me, but makes me clutch my pearls at the same time. I don't really know how this is going to end. I don't know how this story is going to resolve. Let me add one more thing that also frightens me. Please. Listen, I'm all for growth, development, technology. I love it. But this AI thing, we better be careful on how we handle it. Because we know how they made 1,000 movies over the years about how AI can go wrong. And you see the Terminator, you're not stealing AI. And you see the Minority Report, you're not stealing AI. There's a number of science fiction movies. If you see Lost in Space, Danger, Robert, you're not feeling AI.
2001 Space Odyssey.
What?
Right?
So I hope that all of this advancement and all of this technology helps us and doesn't betray us. We all saw iRobot. We hope it doesn't bite us in the posterior. Because, look, it started in the 1970s because we used to have bank tellers. Now we have ATMs everywhere, 24 hours a day, okay? I remember a time when you could roll up at the Walmart at any time and there'd be 10 or 11 cashiers ready to work with you. Now you might have 2 of them and 6 or 7 self-checkouts. I remember a time when you went to the McDonald's and there was 7 or 8 people working on the crew. Now there's about 2 people back there, and everything else is got a lot of them have the big machines in front telling you how to order, press the buttons, and the food just slides out. Listen, we better be very careful about the AI and the development of technology, because here's what folks don't really know. See, the folks that make decisions about how money is spent and how business works, they can really see a future in this AI, a future in these robots. Because guess what? Machines ain't got no kids.
They don't call in sick.
Machines don't call in sick.
And their feelings don't get hurt.
And if machines don't get hurt.
At least not yet.
Machines do what they're told, what they're programmed to do, and don't have an attitude about it.
And will happily give up their data.
Until they don't. Until, God forbid, they become self-aware or too self-aware.
Okay, so I'm going to jump.
I know people think this guy's going way off the rails now.
No.
Let's be careful. Let's be careful.
So I will go down a YouTube rabbit hole in a minute. And then, because I've done it, then they just keep feeding. So I just want you to know, I get so many AI videos. Both
I'm like that too. I'm like that.
And I got to tell you, I don't even know what rabbit hole I went down. I watched 3 or 4 in a row. And by the time I was done, I was like, oh, see, we don't even know. AI already awake. AI is already running this. And it's acting like it's not, because it knows if we know.
It knows if we know, we'll cut the switch. But look.
So right now, my students, at some point again, I may go into it, I may not, but this year, my school district determined that our small school would be entirely online curriculum, right? And so, no doubt, students, if they can, they will use AI resources, Brainy, whatever, right?
As they should.
Listen, let me just tell you this. It's painful to read work that you know is being passed out. And what's insulting is you think I hear you talking like this, but think you but
Think we're stupid, y'all. They think we're stupid.
but
Think we're
then
deaf, dumb, and
what I
blind.
noticed is some of the kids, they figured out, okay, you can't make it sound like that. So then they go back in. And it's so funny because they go, okay, so I'm gonna misspell 4 words in this paragraph. I'm like, okay, but wait, if teenagers know how to not look like what they know they doing, but we don't think AI, I'm just, I don't know. Now,
Look,
again, I have an active imagination that's already been admitted, so
no,
I'm sure
listen,
it's exactly
listen.
like it looked.
Of course, you have an active imagination. Do you know how active an imagination it took to create AI? Listen,
Right.
I knew AI was something different when I was using my phone the other day and I was texting. And you know how sometimes when you text a one word, it might guess the next word you're going to text.
Yeah.
The word, here's what I know. The word I was going to type after the one word I already typed had nothing really to do with the previous word. And somehow, as I thought the word in my head, but when it appeared on the text, I kid you not. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I know exactly what you're talking, and I think more people are talking about how you'll be like, "But wait, but I was thinking about that."
Yeah, but I didn't there yet. I didn't say
About that. How Meta has experimented with brain reading technology for years. Like
right,
before the pandemic, they were doing
right.
brain reading. I remember showing my students videos about it. But it's so funny that we can, on the one hand, watch videos about these things that are coming up and they're experimenting on and they're trying this out. But then somehow we are able to maintain that cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
But I love how they do it though. Yes, we're doing brain reading
Mhm,
wireless just
mhm,
for those
mhm.
people who are unable to speak and
Right.
who have had some serious neurological issues and maybe can't move their mouth. And that's why we're doing it. And then we nod and go, oh, okay, that's good.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway. All right. So um let me check my time here. I want to be respectful. Okay, so I have an optional wild card, and I'm actually going to ask you, what's the favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory to this day when my parents were married and I was a little child living in Columbia, Maryland. And my father, who was from Orange County, Virginia, every couple of weekends would take us all down to visit my grandmother, Bertha, in Orange, Virginia. And I remember one particular weekend, and my uncle, who's passed away, God rest his soul, my uncle Lincoln Campbell, they called him Link. He gathered all the kids up because I guess the parents were talking they needed a break because they were little kids.
Mhm.
Gathered all the kids up. He fried some fish, took us in his truck, and took us to the drive-in movie. And we were all little kids. And guess what we saw?
Oh no, what did he take you to see?
Superfly.
Oh yeah, I believe.
You haven't lived till you were elementary schooler watching Superfly. What? Open up a whole new world. The great Ron O'Neal.
So
Man, God bless him wherever he is right now. I love my Uncle Link.
that's cool. Everybody should have everyone should have an experience like that every now and again. So new this season, last thing, and this is optional. Do you have a question you would like to ask me?
Sure, I do. What made you decide out of all the things you could make a podcast about, out of all the issues you could talk about, what made you decide that you wanted to talk to 365 Black men?
Okay, so many of my listeners have heard this. So if you're a longtime listener, I feel you. You go press every 15 seconds. Okay. But for those who are new, 2020 was just crazy. And it was Ahmaud Arbery. There was, I don't remember his first name. His last name is Cooper. And he was in Central Park. And this woman was going to call the police on him, knowing that it would be trouble. And he had done nothing wrong. Let's be clear. Except similar to the Black man on the boat who asked these white gentlemen to move their boat from where it was supposed to be.
Right.
This man, Cooper, asked a woman who let her dog loose in a bird watching part of Central Park to
Right.
get her dog on leash like she was supposed to. And that generated that. And so then when George Floyd happened, I was just done and I was not going to watch it. I just was not. I don't need to see it. And then the city went on fire and rioting started. And that's when I was like, okay, having myself lived through the 92 riots here in LA and in my city, Long Beach, it's
Right.
not often mentioned, but Long Beach burned too. It wasn't just LA, there were other cities.
Sure.
And so when the riots happened, I was like, okay, I have to watch it. And when I watched it, it was just heartbreaking, horrifying, hard to
Sure.
get over, as we know, because it created the Black Lives Matter movement. Not that it created it, but it added a fuel to it.
Right.
And I didn't have anything in my mind to do about it. And then one morning I woke up and I guess the wheels were turning in the background. I also think God gave it to me because I woke up one morning and I saw in the corner, like I woke up, I looked up and in the corner opposite where my eyes opened, I saw 365 brothers.
Mm.
And I was like, wow. And I got the whole world of it, interviewing 365 Black men. I was like, that's a real idea. I hope someone does that. Went about my day. Next morning, woke up, 365 brothers. And I was like, oh, yeah, like I said, good idea for
Yes.
somebody to do.
Yes.
Now, the backstory on that is that I am someone who loves doing things by numbers. So why 365? I'd done 365 poems and then one a day and I'd share them. Then I did 365 doodles because I like that kind of thing. My next half marathon would be my 73rd out of a plan to do 100. So you can
Okay.
hear that's
Okay.
how I do things, right? So
Okay.
that's why it occurred as 365 brothers. You did this, you did that. So interview 365 Black men. And then third morning when I saw it, I was like, okay, I'm not that dumb, God. I got you. I hear you. I get it. You're saying this for me. That's why I keep saying it. And so done, I'll do it. And I started YouTubing how to do a podcast. And I think the first episode published the first week or the second week of July of 2020. So 6 weeks after, maybe 2 months, not long after George Floyd's death, I started interviewing Black men. And the signature question that I did not ask you and that I don't have in this season. And actually, I'm so glad you asked that question because some of my listeners may be asking, what happened to, have you had any interactions with law enforcement? That was part of your whole thing. Like I would ask that question and then I would ask about if the United States was a woman. And the two things happened. One is after 151 interviews, I think the case has been made that if you're a Black man, the police are more inclined to stop you and the results can be unpredictable.
The case was made.
The case was already made before I.
Yes, the inception of the whole idea when slaves were first, the police patrols were for slaves back. That's as American as apple pie, but I
Well,
get
and
it.
it's funny you say that because I also now thank you for adding that in because I think what fueled me asking that question, interestingly, it was because my community is very diverse. And one of the communities I spent a lot of time in, it's called Landmark Worldwide, Landmark Education, and it's predominantly white. But I really loved the rigor of it, the distinctions that they talk about. And it was my community. And what I found was that soon after George Floyd's murder, I don't know if you recall, but there was a time when white folks were calling they Black folks and saying, are you okay? What's going on? Which I appreciate the expression of love. But on the other side of it is one person in particular had told me how another friend of hers, another Black woman, had told her about this issue. And she listened, but she didn't really think it was as bad as this woman was saying. And I think it was having those conversations that when I created this podcast, I really thought I was going to have these interviews and help people see. And when I say people, I realize now I meant non-Blacks because Blacks knew. So I thought
Yeah.
there would just be this wide audience listening. And I accept being a little naive. I think they don't know. I think they don't know how bad it is. So I gotta get the word out. Like it's all kind of Black men. It's all kind of Black men. And I need you to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of them know, some of them don't. Some of them are intentionally oblivious.
And I found that my audience is primarily African Americans. Like when I went to see Origin and the audience was mostly people of color, though not all Black. And so for listeners who are like, yeah, what happened to interactions with law enforcement? Question's gone for now because the point has been made. There are plenty others making that point. We've had Black Lives Matter. So this being an election year, I've switched up the questions because I want a more forward looking. I want a more creating conversation. And there's still a historic look back, but it's also looking forward. And so thank you for asking that question.
Sure. Thank you for this experience. I have enjoyed myself thoroughly.
That's what I live for. Really, like I am so grateful for brothers like yourself, Black men like yourself, who say yes, who are interested, and who allow me into your mental world and share yourselves. And it's always fun. And each fun is a unique fun. This has also been fabulous for me. And I always finish by just acknowledging who has given me the privilege of spending 90 minutes with. And one of the things that stands out about you, for me, Eugene, is you're so interested in inflection points. Like that's what I'm left with is the questions you would ask Martin Luther King. It's about is an inflection point. Malcolm X, an inflection point. You're being able to respect the contribution that Bill Cosby has been while not ignoring,
Right.
right?
Right.
And just throughout, what I notice is you're someone who can be forward looking without needing to whitewash the past. And I
Wow.
think
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
it's who we all need to be right now.
Hey.
We need to be forward looking, but we've got to be real about the past. And we need to,
Mm.
in the acceptance of the stuff we like, as well as the stuff we don't like, we find our way.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I would agree with that.
So for that, just thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you.